Hello and welcome to our new show, Secret Sauce, where we have questions posed by you guys and ourselves to people within the industry to have a deeper look at what goes on within the esports industry. In this season, we're tackling coaching, and we have two experienced coaches with us, Vetrezz and Mr.G. We have myself, Jamil, and Omar as well on the show. And without further ado, let's start. Second question is strategy versus culture. How do you see these in esports? So this is something close to our previous question, but that culture might drive strategy or vice versa. Which one is kind of the determining factor? How do they impact an org?
Mm-hmm. If I take that one first, I mean, there's the traditional sort of statement, culture defeats strategy all the time. Now, I think that nothing is ever the winning factor. I think it's the combination of factors that end up bringing you what you need. I think Vetrezz and I are probably very much in the same area here, that we both believe culture is a through and through kind of thing. Culture is not something you talk about. Culture is something you live. And I think that it's very easy to sometimes see esports teams as small families or family clusters. They kind of come in, but that's also assuming that that's the culture. You know, do we go for this warm closeness, this sort of an atmosphere? On the other hand, you could have a culture of we are highly professional, extremely highly professional. This is not about warm and fuzzy feelings. This is about winning, and we all like that. That's why we joined this team. That's why we joined this org. We're in it to win it, and we will grind, we will fight, we will battle each other a little bit to figure out how to make each other stronger. And at the end of the day, our highest value is the win. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is something that we were talking orgs before. This is something that orgs have to make very, very clear. You know, are we a nurturing environment that can support one kind of player? Are we a power environment, like a strategy environment, a thinking environment, or are we a blend of the two? Mm-hmm. So I think it's I know where I stand and what kind of culture I like, but that's not to say that that's everybody's culture. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vetrezz?
Yeah, so I think that for me, I strongly agree with the most things that you say. I think that culture and strategy is basically combined in esports. It's like, as you said, culture will defeat strategy, but you also need a strategy at least to make their culture work, basically. So I think that the org has to have a clear strategy, of course, but they also need to live the culture that they want to implement for the players, so they can be a role model basically for them. So I think this question is like is actually hard to answer, because it is mostly both of the strategy and culture combined which matter the most in esports. So it's more of a thing that they like, if you lack in one of those things, then it will be hard to actually get to the top. But strategy in the end doesn't, like, strategy alone also doesn't win you any competition. So you need a good mix of both, if I can phrase it like that.
Like if culture... Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, what do you think, Jamil, is the essence, or what's important about culture for you when you think of it? Mm-hmm. What's the essence of culture for you?
Culture as an organizational culture, for example, is literally how it's something that you feel when you first step into the environment. It's how people interact with each other. It's the certain, even goes down to the certain terminologies, and not just that, like the hierarchy and how it's seen. this doesn't have to come off as something straightforward that people say that, okay, this is how it's going to be, but it's something that you observe through people's actions. Like either it's a hierarchy, like a pyramid, and you have to kind of follow the leader, and it's very kind of autocratic in a sense, if we're going to use that example. Or it could be something that's more like a family, like you said, or objective oriented. Objective oriented is very good in terms of like you see people that are driven. You feel that it's a serious environment when you first step in. So it's more of a feeling, and it's definitely driven by actions, but it's always a tone at the top, and it trickles down. So anyone who's in a leadership position needs to be aware that their actions do define how everyone acts. Whether they like it or not, they do have that influence.
Yeah. And that's why I would have said potentially, and sorry, Omar, your views are needed here too. I would have said, because you pointed at feelings, I'm going to go to the very base of the fact that if not everybody in the organization or the team or whatever understands the shared values, then they're going to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So if I do not understand that one of our shared values is professionalism, that professionalism and giving the best is kind of what we're always aiming at, then, and they prefer the more casual, do what you can kind of approach, somebody's going to feel uncomfortable there. And so I think that pointing out that it is feeling points very strongly to the fact that everybody's agreeing kind of the values that they want to live and play by.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very straightforward though. Like if I'm going to use a kind of a cliche example, you have those like a certain manager or a team leader or even like HR, they say like when they're onboarding, we're a company that does this and this and this. We're like this kind of company, we're like a team. We're a team that wins. So at least you have a sense of, oh, okay, serious. It feels more serious. If like a coach says to the players that it's important that you have fun, it's a different tone than it's important that we win, and the priorities will be different. So it's not just a feeling, it's also sometimes very direct. It's kind of a blend of both.
And it's crazy when it's not clear, right?
Yeah, but this is why I meant
conversation before. When you don't talk about what is our culture. Vetrezz and I think have seen this sometimes when there is neither talk nor action, and everybody is trying to figure it out for themselves. Then you're missing both the culture and potentially, if you're missing the strategy as well, then it probably goes back to the first question we ever discussed, which is what does an org have to do? Probably close doors and figure it out and then open them again.
Okay. Also, like in terms of culture, people who are at the top, if they're not aware that they have to be deliberate about it, as you mentioned, that also creates a lot of confusion around it. Same with strategy. Like you want to create a strategy, and you can have that wishful thinking that you want to create a strategy, but it also has to be deliberate, that you have to review it. It has to be at least written down, something that you create a plan that you want to achieve in a 3-year span, 1-year span, something short-term, something long-term. That keeps people in perspective, and it also keeps them motivated and driven, because we know what we're striving towards. Like we want to win a cup, we want to win worlds, we want to, okay, we're starting off we're a team that's starting off in this tier, and okay, what we want to do is get mid-table now, and then next year maybe aim at top table, and then 3rd year get a trophy. It's a good strategy to have, but you need to be explicit also with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the lack of goals is actually the thing that keeps players keeps players from reaching their highest potential that they have, because in general you need, as an org, you should have like a whole game plan basically laid out already, basically the whole strategy that you need.
Yeah,
if people can't tell you where you're going.
Yeah.
We've had this conversation over and over, Vetrezz and I. Yeah. It's just like, if you cannot say where you're going and you do not know where the signposts are to tell you you're going in the right way or the wrong way, and your answer is, we seem to be lost, let's turn around and just go back, or let's go left, or let's go right.
Yeah.
Then essentially it would be like doing circles in a desert.
Yeah.
You're just going to stay there. And so both, I like your word deliberate building of culture, deliberate building of strategy, deliberate communication, deliberate, even explicitly discussing how do we behave when we say we respect each other. How do we behave when we say we're professionals? What does it mean with our routines? What does it mean when the coach is asking for something, or Vetrezz gives you plans? Because Vetrezz laid out in our last question how much he, as a team manager, can do for a team to free them up.
Yeah.
But then when Vetrezz needs something done, it has to be understood that it needs to be done quickly.
Yeah.
There's the sense of urgency. Also wanted to pinpoint something that might get overlooked. You might have a lot of companies create a strategy and they think that's set in stone, and that's something that we're going to go towards in 5 years, and we're not going to shift no matter what, we're just going to achieve this. But you need to be smart about it, that you can pivot. It's okay if you're not achieving these goals right now, or like a new goal shows up, because sometimes orgs have different initiatives. If an initiative that you thought wasn't a major initiative is going really well and you really want to invest into it, then it's okay to shift the strategy towards something that's going well for you, that you didn't expect that you didn't expect in the first place. So flexibility and having that also be built in the culture, that we're not people who are just we just hammer away at something and hope that it keeps working. We're people who are adaptable. We learn. We have data. Things that encourages flexibility, and especially like in decision making, and the initiatives that they do also help. It's great for strategy, and it's also great for culture. If that makes sense.
I like the word pivot.
Yeah. It's from a good book. I think you know about it, The Lean Startup.
Yeah. This one up
the
here.
The famous bookshelf.
up on the shelf behind me there, The Lean Startup. Yeah.
So
I think that's all.
Pivot's important.
I think that's all the time we have for this question.
So we discussed strategy. We discussed that culture influences strategy, but we need both, and that it can be something felt, but it also should be something explicit.
Agreed.